Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. I'm not talking about chess, even though it kind of looks like that. No, this is the Dungeons & Dragons 5e rules and I'm doing Lesson 3, Complex Combat Mechanics. That's the stuff that's not simple, that's a bit more complicated. I haven't covered that yet, and so that is what I'm going to do today. Now, I usually do an overview, so what am I going to cover? Well, first off, we're going to be covering the hide action in combat. What is a readied action in a battle? How does grapple work in a fight? What makes a shove different from a grapple? And cover, the 3 different types of cover available to you in the game. Death saving throws, of course, for your characters and your monsters. And then some miscellaneous recommendations that I have for you regarding any kind of play that you engage in. My objectives are to explain everything. I will try to demonstrate as much as I possibly can, but I also want you to participate, so feel free to do so. If you get confused by the hide action, that's alright, because it actually is quite complicated. It's not easy. The hide action requires your main action, whether it be a character or a monster usually, and you will use that to actually attempt to hide. Now what this does is it makes you unseen from your foe. So whoever your enemy is, you will be unseen. Now you need to be able to hide in something, okay? What you would do is you would make a dexterity or stealth check. If there's something you can hide in or behind, it's going to work better. There are situations that may arise determined by the dungeon master where they may require you not to have some sort of cover or something to hide behind. So if you're sneaking up behind somebody and we're not using facing rules, then maybe you would apply the hide action. But usually in combat there needs to be something for you to actually hide in, and if you don't have that, then it won't be successful. The next action is the readied action. This is also very difficult to understand. The readied action requires you use your main action again on your turn. So this can be for a character or a monster, and you're using your reaction. So you burn up your action, but you're actually going to take your turn as a reaction on somebody else's turn, and it's based off a stipulated trigger. So you have to actually state what you're going to do. It can be any of the things that are listed as an action, or it could be just movement if you wanted to just move. And you need to do this before you actually wind up making your action. So make sure you state what your trigger is. Okay, when you decide to make the readied action, you can't just say, I'm taking a readied action. You need to state exactly what it is that will trigger the readied action. Now you can move and then take a readied action. So if you want to use up your 30 feet of movement, if that's what you have, and then use your action to take the readied action, you can do this. And that's fine, that's not a problem. You're probably going to come across this when you're dealing with goblins and things that can hide and cover. Other than that, you probably won't come across it too often. Let's hope anyway. The grapple action. Another quite complicated mechanic. Probably not the worst of them, but there's a lot of different aspects to it and it can be confusing. Grapple is a special melee attack that stops a creature's movement if the contest between your strength or athletics check succeeds on the target creature's strength, athletics, or dexterity acrobatics check. Okay, and they're trying to resist you trying to grab onto them. They're trying to resist the hold. Now, what you will notice is that when you do this, when you are trying to apply the grapple, you must use strength or athletics as the check. You do not get to use acrobatics or dexterity. But if you are resisting and trying to get out of the grapple that's being applied to you, then you can use athletics, strength, or dexterity acrobatics. So it's not exactly the same. When would you use this? Well, essentially if you don't want the creature to run away and you want to stop them moving. That's probably the only time you would use it because it doesn't offer any other benefits other than that. The next action, very similar to the grapple action in terms of how it works, but it has a different effect, and that is the shove action. Now the shove action works like this. It is a special melee attack that either knocks a creature prone or pushes the creature 5 feet away. Now you will again use the same mechanic as the grapple. It's a contest between whoever's trying to use the shove. You use your strength or athletics check. That's what you have to use, and the target gets to use their strength athletics check or their dexterity acrobatics check to resist the force of being shoved. When would you use this? When you want to push a creature off the side of a building, into a fire, when you want to change their position, and that would be an advantage to you in some way. That's usually when you're going to be using the shove action. Next, let's cover cover. Let's cover cover. That's right, cover. We need cover. Cover makes us live longer in Dungeons & Dragons. Cover can make it more difficult for an attack to hit, or for a spell to affect the character, or the monsters. It can be any one of those. So half cover, this is when half of the body of the creature is covered, allows you to have a +2 bonus to your armor class, or a +2 bonus to your dexterity saving throw if a dexterity saving throw is involved. It does not affect any other saving throws, only dexterity saving throws and only armor class. 3/4 cover, this is when 3/4 of your body is covered, grants you a +5 bonus to armor class and a +5 bonus to a dexterity saving throw. Now total cover means that the creature can't be targeted by attacks or spells because you can't see the creature at all. You are completely unseen. You're completely covered. That's why it's called total cover. There are exceptions where you could be affected by an attack, and that is only generally if there is an area effect attack that circumvents cover. Not all area effect attacks or spells will circumvent cover or total cover, but some do. So that's how cover works in the game of Dungeons & Dragons. And then finally, the last mechanic, probably the one that I get the most questions about, and probably for good reason, and that is the death saving throw. Because the death saving throw is not your standard death saving throw. It is not like any of the other saving throws. A death saving throw is performed at the start of a character's turn, not at the end of their turn. So that means that you perform this at the start of your turn. You do not usually use a death saving throw for a monster, and you only do it if your character has 0 hit points and they're not dead. Okay, there is a point at which you have 0 hit points and you are classified as dead, but there's also a point when you reach 0 hit points when you are just dying. So unless you take an enormous amount of damage that would outright kill you instantly, and this is usually when you take damage that would force you down minus your maximum hit points. So imagine you had 50 hit points and you took 100 points of damage. That would push you down to minus 50, which means you are instantly dead. But if that doesn't happen, you're just dying. So what do we have to do with the death saving throw? All you do is pick up one 20-sided dice and you roll that dice, and that's all you need to do, because this is what is going to determine whether you live or die. If you roll a 10 or higher, that counts as one success. Okay? You are successful once. If you roll a 9 or less, you have failed and you have one failure. If you roll a 1, that is counted as 2 failures. And if you roll a 20, you have not just succeeded, you are now on 1 hit point. You are now no longer unconscious, you are conscious. Now we're going to tally up and keep a record of all the failures and successes that you get on your death saving throw. Because when you get 3 cumulative successful death saving throws, you are stable, but you are not conscious. So you won't need to make any more death saving throws when you have 3 successes. And you need to get them before you get 3 consecutive cumulative failures. Okay, if you get 3 cumulative failures before 3 successes, your character dies. And it's time to look at making a new character or trying to find a way of bringing them back to life. And that is how death saving throws work in the game. Now, like everything that I do on this channel, I always have some miscellaneous recommendations that I have for you, and I again have some for today. And that is, when unsure what to do, I want you to either apply an ability check, a skill check, an attack roll, or a saving throw to determine if whatever the player character or the monster is trying to do will work. So if it's not covered by the rules, that's all you need to remember. Does it make sense that we make an ability check, or a skill check, or an attack roll, or a saving throw? And you pick the one that seems most appropriate, and that's what you use. Otherwise, if you're not going to be rolling dice, if the situation seems like whatever they're doing is going to be pretty successful, in other words, it seems like it would be easy to achieve, give them automatic success. If they suggest something that really would make no sense that it would work, then give them automatic failure. Okay, so if you want to harpoon the moon and pull it down to earth, then of course you're not going to roll dice. You're just going to say it's not effective. And that's really it. There isn't too much else that I want to cover in terms of the complex nature of Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't want that to stop you asking me questions and giving me feedback. What I would like to say is, don't get caught up in the rules. The rules aren't the only thing that are important to Dungeons and Dragons. I know some people feel differently about that. So ask your questions in the comments section, give your feedback, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.